Well, my friends, here we are once again, looking at one of the worst written stories I've ever seen in my life. A franchise that has its cold, slimy, barbed tentacles hooked into my flesh, refusing to let go and fueling my unending desire to rip this disaster to pieces. However, I do think it's necessary to correct some mistakes I made in past reviews. The first is pretty much saying that Oscar losing his agency and identity isn't enough to care. That was a very stupid thing for me to say. Sure, Oscar isn't very fleshed out or interesting in the slightest, but the inevitable takeover of Oz is enough of a reason to care. I also brought up a strange list of reasons as to why James would shoot Oscar instead of the obvious one being Oz reincarnating in a different body he could potentially trust. I was perhaps also a bit too hard on May. I do retract my shoehorn trans character statement since that isn't the sole thing about her character. However, she's still a pretty nothing character since I doubt she'll matter in the future. Could be wrong, but this is RWBY, so fading into irrelevance is pretty much a given for side characters. With those corrections out of the way, I think it's time to finally finish this failure, and I suspect it'll be a long one. Last we left Oz, he nuked Kevin with his staff. Because he always had this, apparently? Gee, I wonder when this could have been useful. Pyrrha might still be alive. Cinder would be dead, and Oz wouldn't have to reincarnate because he could have protected himself like he did last episode. And the situation of Veil falling would more than justify him using it. Plus, with Cinder dead, that leaves Salem without the power of a maiden. But the Kane nuke didn't exist then. So that's why he didn't use it. Neo escapes with the lamp, and the Job Squad and Winter somehow survive being this close to an explosion so big that the pressure wave pushed back Grimm that were in the city. They're not even scratched. Or a durability inconsistency, or plot armor? The answer is yes. Cut to Cinder and Arthur tells Cinder off, going over every one of her fuck-ups in savage detail.
You stormed into Freya's room thinking you could take on Ironwood's top fighter and war machine. Oh, and let's not forget your deal with Raven Brownwind. If only someone could have warned you against such a miserable idea. Oh wait, I did! But you pushed ahead and you lost it when all you had to do was your job!
Now, I do enjoy the scene because it does address some of the issues with Cinder. However, just because you address the issues doesn't make them any less detrimental. It's the equivalent of saying Cinder was supposed to be retarded retroactively. Because I do not believe for a single second that Kruby actually planned this scene way back when Volume 5 came out. Nor does it fix her chunky plot armor, nor does it highlight just how incompetent she really is, as well as Salem for giving her yet another chance to get the maiden powers. Then Cinder sits on the edge of a building and cries. That's strange considering Cinder never liked Arthur to begin with, and thus hearing him say these things shouldn't really affect her in any way. Seems rather inconsistent of the one-dimensional psychopath that hasn't given a shit about what other people think. It's not that giving Cinder a moment of self-reflection is a bad idea in itself, but this comes out of left field. If you wanted to have this moment hit the way it was intentioned to, then having Cinder's failures affect her in a way prior to this would have been the way to go. Because Salem rewards her for failing to capture the maiden powers for a third time in a row, blaming herself for not lifting Cinder up despite giving Cinder support and even greater power prior to her first major fuck-up in Volume 5. If Salem is going to admit that she was wrong for holding Cinder back despite failing miserably 3 fucking times, 2 of which she directly went against Salem's orders, then why bother taking anything Arthur says to heart? Or at the very least, why cry like a goddamn child because the man with the mustache said mean words? We cut to the Moronics, who have taken Emerald as a prisoner because she's a dangerous criminal who has participated in the greatest acts of terrorism Remnant has likely ever seen. Ren, however, thinks differently.
We can't let all of our actions stem from fear. If she could help us, I think we should consider it.
While I understand Ren's point of view, it's a stupid point of view. Ironically, Yang makes a good case.
She is part of the reason I have this. I'm not going to just forgive her.
Just saying that made me feel sick. Also, apparently it was difficult for the scripting team to decide how nice the team should be to Emerald. I don't know what to tell you aside from watch your own fucking show. I get that she helped them, but this isn't the first time she tricked them into thinking she was on their side. Of course, Ren's plot powers sees her true feelings. How convenient it awakened when it did. Oscar tells Yang to give Emerald a chance, which illustrates the hypocrisy of the Moronics, but I'm getting ahead of myself again. Oscar then explains how the cane works.
Kinetic energy that he spent lifetime after lifetime accumulating in the cane he built.
Using all of the stored up power.
Not all.
So Oz can decide how much energy to use. Well then, that makes the fight with Cinder all the more retarded now, doesn't it? Anyways, they come across all the innocent civilians that James managed to save. What a monster. He should have been drinking tea and wondering what to do. Speaking of my precious boy, his assassination continues.
Penny still hasn't come to the vault, meaning Watts was either incompetent or he betrayed us.
You should have known that from the beginning, since he's working for humanity's greatest enemy, the person you've dedicated your life to fighting. It's so bad that he demonstrates very valid concerns one minute, and then fucking acts transparently evil the next.
Salem's creature was destroyed, but that doesn't mean we've stopped her. She will return, and she will throw everything she has at us until there is nothing left.
I'm ashamed I didn't think of it earlier. Leveraging the lives of her friends?
You've already destroyed him. Leave him alone, you untalented mongoloids. James then destroys his holotable in rage before he's notified about the Schnee ships coming to save the people of Mantle. Now, a competent writer would allow James to have a moment of clarity, that he could stop the ships and use them as a bargaining tool for Penny. After all, Salem isn't a factor currently, so he'd have at least a little bit of time. The reason why he'd been acting so drastically was because Salem was breathing down his neck. Without that, at least currently, he could think more rationally. We are not dealing with competent writers, however. Neo texts Cinder saying she has the McMuffin before we...
Night and day I've waited for the moment when I'd see your face and...
Oh god, this music is pure cringe. Like Batwoman levels of cringe.
and feel you near.
I missed you too.
These people have been apart for a day. A literal fucking day. Their big split, their divide, had nothing to do with any major difference in philosophy, just what is the next course of action, which they agreed to split up and do both. This is the equivalent of two friends being assholes to each other because their politics differ so slightly that any normal person wouldn't know the difference. They all generally agreed that the options that each side chose are good and just disagreed on which took priority. All of this is compounded by the fact that the lyrics are beating you over the head of what is very clearly on screen. Music should enhance the experience, not be the crutch in which the experience relies. At least the reunion at the end of Volume 5 was the main four being away from each other for several months after an immense traumatic experience for everyone, with some animosity Yang held for Blake being put aside. It too was cringe and unearned, but you can justify it way more than this. Then there's the bumblefuck pandering, and you really should have just done it here. Get it out of the way so we can all collectively laugh at it. Because what little these two characters have left is pandering to the lowest common denominator, and I'd like for something new to mock, please. After that bucket load of concentrated sappy sewage, James broadcasts an ultimatum. Bring Penny to him, or Mantle will be destroyed. Here it is, the final shot into James Ironwood as a character. I'm half tempted to go into all of what Rooster Teeth has done to destroy this character, but that is best saved for the final nail in the coffin of this retarded heap. This isn't the action of a man who is desperate to save his kingdom and its people. According to the commentary, his actions are that of a man who finds control slipping out of his grasp. And of course, we can't forget this tweet. Drink it in. This was apparently the plan all along. Because having James make more sense the majority of the time in Volume 7, while the Moronics remain complete dumbasses is how you build up to this moment. The moment where James becomes just another villain. Fuck off, you incompetent piles of hagfish meat. You're an embarrassment to your craft. Look at all these people terrified at the possibility that Mantle might be destroyed. And these are all the fucks I give. Anyways.
So what? He's bluffing? With the whole city?
Yes, Marrow. That is a possibility. The fact you're unable to grasp that shows how stupid you are. Granted, he's not bluffing because he's evil now. Again, thanks for that, you cavalcade of talentless hacks. Marrow decides to speak out of line, then Vine says some dumb shit.
If this is what gets the children to cooperate, then it's worth it.
They're not going to see reason because blowing up a city isn't a reasonable action. Why are you portraying soldiers in such a negative light? Is it because military bad? In a world like Remnant, military bad is a retarded theme. Horrible nightmare creatures are one mass panic away from wiping out a city. Having a strong armed force with perhaps more power than the real world makes sense. I mean, the writers think that soldiers don't make friends with fellow soldiers. It's bizarre. James is about to shoot Marrow when Winter apprehends him. I'm just disappointed that Marrow wasn't shot. I'd be spared more of his idiocy. Back with the Moronics as they try to come up with a plan, and it's very frustrating.
If Miss Hero with all the answers doesn't have an answer, then we have ours.
Okay, then why don't you just leave?
Can we please just give each other a chance?
You're willing to afford that to a war criminal, someone who aided in the deaths of thousands of people, who follows a sociopath that doesn't care about human life, admitting to the Moronics that...
I don't care about Salem, but I owe Cinder everything.
Why in Azathoth's left testicle are we giving someone with a history of horrible actions that pretended to be on good terms with the group a chance? Yet, for some reason that only higher beings could understand, we lied to a man who showed us nothing but trust, kindness, and empathy. A man who helped a young woman get back on her feet by giving her a top-of-the-line prosthetic. Who stood up for Weiss. A man that only ever wanted to save the world. That guy is not worthy of trust until the worst possible moment. I don't know how many ways I can say these people have the moral consistency of an orca. Ah yes, but you see, Emerald isn't with Salem anymore, so she's automatically trustworthy. Well, first off, anyone who comes to that conclusion should be ashamed of themselves, because she could still be working for Cinder for all they know. The same Cinder who wants the maiden powers. No one ever brings this up. No one bothers to try and ask the obvious question of, how do we know this isn't another ruse to get Penny's power? Well, there's only so many times I can call them idiots, so I guess we'll move on. Also, take a listen to this music when Oscar says Oz is back.
Ozpin is back.
At first, I thought this music was very unfitting since Oz didn't really do anything too terrible. Sure, he lied about Salem and his past, which is certainly something to be upset about, but nothing worthy of this kind of music. And then you remember how Oz was treated after the truth came out, how his fears were completely justified. The music isn't for Oz coming back, but what the Moronics might do to him if he does come out. Well, that's my interpretation because fuck these multicolored clowns. Ruby freaks out and rushes out of the room. Yes. Despair, you disgusting pile of filth. Witness what your actions contributed to. Unfortunately, I can't feed upon her tears though because we have to cut to Ren and Nora.
You're right. I should be apologizing. To both of you.
Ren, you said things that were correct. Don't apologize for being right. In all fairness, though, it's not a terrible scene. Clunky as hell, but compared to the garbage around it, it's not awful, so I'm not going to shit on it. Shocker, I know. That still doesn't save Nora from her own hypocrisy.
I am so sick of secrets! We were in a train crash, and ever since, well, suddenly Oz wasn't there anymore.
Damn continuity! Damn it to hell!
Or her dumping a truckload of dirt onto the person she loves earlier this season. Nor does it make Ren wrong about what he said in episode 5. Crow and Robin get their weapons, and Crow has the worst case of plot amnesia ever.
He deserves this!
I'm now going to go over in autistic detail just how completely stupid you are, Crow. So much detail that it'll be forever cemented in your mind so I don't ever have to bring it up again. Clover approaches Crow and informs him of what he's been ordered to do. He shows absolutely no hostility in doing so because Crow is his friend. Crow is obviously confused and upset, but not irrational. Yet. Robin then jumps up from her seat and points her weapon at Clover, who has not shown any signs of aggression, because she's an idiot. Crow then says,
"Cut it out, both of you. We're almost back to Atlas. Let's talk to James personally."
which is a very rational thing to do. There's no reason to fight, especially in an airship carrying a dangerous psychopath. Then this happens.
It's taken a very long time for this show to get to the good part.
He's right. Let's get this over with.
Robin?
She listens to said dangerous psychopath and attacks Clover, showing that she's a terrible person, but we all knew that. Clover then blocks her attack and shoves her down. Despite Robin very clearly using deadly force, Clover doesn't use excessive force, even though he'd be perfectly in the right for doing so. Crow then attacks Clover for defending himself against the waffle brain that attacked him. One must ask themselves, why is Crow attacking his friend who defended himself? More importantly, why are the characters acting like Clover was the aggressor?
I wish it hadn't come to this. It doesn't have to.
Those lines should be swapped. Clover has done nothing wrong so far. All he's done is his job with no showing of excessive force or ill intent. He's the one who should be telling Crow that it doesn't have to be this way. This is what I like to call narrative dementia, where the plot forgets characters' actions in the same scene. Now comes the part where Clover becomes as stupid as Crow and Robin. He attacks Robin, who deflects the hook and basically allows Tyrion to escape. All of them should know the dangers of fighting in an airship. More importantly, they should all know that their fight could potentially lead to the escape of the dangerous psychopath. These are experienced hunters and, in Clover's case, a soldier. And to the shock of nobody, Tyrion crashes the ship. They all survive this, by the way, because reasons. To speed things up a bit, Crow and Tyrion team up.
Are you mildly retarded?
Crow then breaks Clover's aura, and then Tyrion kills Clover. Crow is surprised by this for some reason. You teamed up with your enemy, dumbass. To bring all this back to Volume 8, James had nothing to do with Clover's death. All he did was order the Moronics to be arrested. That's it. Robin was the one who attacked first. You were the one who attacked someone who was defending themselves. You were the one who teamed up with a psychopath. And you were the one who broke his aura, allowing Tyrion to kill him and frame you. And you even admit in this season that you made a deal with the darkness. This isn't denial on his part either. This is just another case of Metal Man bad, but even worse because James had nothing to do with Clover's death. It was both you and Robin that started the chain of events. Both of you decided the worst options imaginable. I say this with the most confidence I can muster. Crow, you're a fucking idiot. Back with Ruby, and she's pouting on the steps.
We shouldn't lie to ourselves. I wasted our time getting Amity up, thinking help would come, but it didn't.
See, guys? James's plan would have failed anyways. Even though the leader of the world's military superpower saying all that shit about Salem and the promise of military aid would have been far more effective. And you were expecting help in a day at most? Who was going to help in such a short amount of time, Ruby? You brainless goose. Ah, yes, but this was a learning experience for Ruby. It's supposed to develop her character. Except she learns fuck all from the experience and couldn't even copy the idea correctly. By now, you'd think she should have more than half a brain cell and think things out more thoroughly. Plus, Yang tells Ruby that her choices weren't stupid and poorly thought out.
Look, blind optimism isn't great, but no optimism means we've already lost.
Yang, blind optimism is just as bad as no optimism. When literally everything around you is going tits up with no reason to think it'll get any better, being realistic is the best option. Thinking that it'll all be fine or get better for no reason other than being optimistic is fucking stupid.
We need hope.
While I agree in some capacity that hope is needed, the best course of action was to be realistic. But that would make them as bad as the Metal Man, so that's a no-go. And yes, Ruby, your plan was a fucking flop, and I've already explained why you're a dumbass for it. After more nauseating bullshit, Jean comes running down the stairs to confront Penny, who has been taken over fully by the virus. Penny then says,
"Kill me, and I can make sure the power goes to you."
Now, the thought of Ruby becoming a maiden makes me want to vomit because she already has an instant Grim Nuke. Giving her more powers would just be silly. However, I do very much like this idea. Penny is effectively dying. If she escapes, she'll open the vault and die. If she stays, there's really no telling what the virus will do to her in the long run, and she might even pose a threat. After all, she was willing to use her powers on her friends. Having Ruby get the powers, as much as I hate the idea, does make sense as it keeps them away from the bad Metal Man. Plus, it challenges their morality. Penny is their friend, but she's in constant suffering. As shitty as it may be, that is the best course of action, both practically and morally. Instead...
I cannot fight it! Yes, you can! It's just a part of you, remember?
Yes, Nora, tell her to fight the fucking virus that's somehow a part of her. Do you not know what a computer virus is, you donut? Remember, kids, cancer is just a part of you.
If you were only a machine, you never could have fought back for this long.
But she is a machine, though, Nora. A sentient machine capable of free will and emotions, but still a machine. Much like humans are still apes despite our greater intelligence to the other apes and other monkeys. This verbal excrement gives Ruby the idea to have Jean boost Penny's aura, which fights back the computer virus. This is fucking stupid. Aura healing humans makes sense as it likely increases cell duplication when fixing tissue damage and helps clot blood. Jean's semblance would increase the efficiency of that. What on Azathoth's dream world makes you think a computer virus can be stopped by boosting aura? This is basically the random bullshit Go meme in animated form.
But you've got an aura, Penny. A soul. That's who you are. Our friend.
No shit, dumbasses. She literally told you.
I'm the world's first synthetic person capable of generating an aura.
Who the fuck in this show is contesting that Penny isn't a sentient life form? Why is this... Oh, wait. This is a response to Penny getting the maiden powers despite making no sense mechanically, isn't it?
Weakness of any kind completely revolts me.
You guys have been getting your asses kicked. Some of that. My fault.
Yes, Emerald, you have been involved in war crimes. We've been over this.
Look, I'm just going to be super pissed if you all finally decide to give up the moment I switch sides.
The clunk is real. Just come out and say it. I know it'll make the consumers happy, but there are much better ways to do this than this rusty-ass dialogue. But now that Emerald has been absorbed into the hive mind, all is forgiven. No consequences for this criminal, not as long as you understand your place and don't commit wrongthink. Only one line of thought is allowed. Oz comes out and tells us a fairy tale. Guys, you have 1 hour before that shithole of a city is nuked. Hurry the fuck up.
I failed all of you.
That's partly true, Oz. You did keep Salem's immortality a secret. For understandable reasons, but still, that is some need-to-know information. However, they failed you as well. Not only by reaffirming your previous belief that they would turn on you if they knew, but they were heavily responsible for edging one of your close friends into insanity. Chew these hypocrites out for the morally inconsistent marble brains they are.
I should have trusted you with the truth.
Good God, no. You shouldn't trust any of these mongoloids. Except maybe Ren and Jean, but even then that's a stretch. We all know what happened the last time someone trusted them, and it went horribly. Another thing that's worth mentioning is that Penny doesn't once say anything to Emerald, despite her threatening to kill her dad and assisting in the attack on Amity. She even saw her freaking the fuck out over Cinder's unconscious body. But continuity is pretty gay, not gonna lie.
Trust is a risk.
You did not just say that. Roll that back. Play it again.
Trust is a risk.
How little self-awareness does one have to not look at this scene and not see the irony? Because none of you lobotomized donkeys have demonstrated trust beyond those who fall into your naive and retarded mentality. But you're right. Trusting all of you is not only a risk, but a mistake. The people who wrote this should be ashamed of themselves. They don't know the show that they're writing for, which is like saying Drytron is cancer, but it still astounds me to this day. Ruby manages to come up with a plan and oh boy, what a 700 IQ plan it is, but that retardation will have to wait until a bit later. James is waiting for Ruby to drop off Penny, and he only has the job squad with him. You'd think he'd have at least a small armed guard with him in case the Moronics pull a fast one. Wouldn't be the first time they lied to him. He sends the job squad to secure the bomb, and then Penny arrives. Except it's not Penny, it's Emerald using her semblance. And James is surprised that the known liars and traitors lied and betrayed him. Desperation and stupidity are not interchangeable, guys. I know he didn't know that Emerald has assimilated into the collective, or even who Emerald is and what she can do, but the fact that he would even think that they would hold up their end is dumb. I thought he was supposed to be paranoid, but I guess he's just really stupid. A really shitty fight happens as James is having difficulties with a bunch of kids. Really selling the military general with decades of combat experience here. So you can use your time stop to stop a fight before it begins more than once in the entire series. It's just when it's inconvenient for the plot you forget. You stupid Canoid. Then Winter does this over-the-top anime finisher and it looks like ass. Because despite Ruby desperately wanting to be a shonen, it doesn't understand what makes certain shonen tropes cool. The United States of Smash isn't cool for the aesthetics alone. It's cool because the series spent its time building to All Might's eventual retirement due to his worsening condition, all the while endearing the audience to him.
Even as my body rots and grows frail, even as you expose my weakened state, in my heart, I remain the symbol of peace. And there's nothing you can do to take that from me.
This isn't some epic triumph over the evil Metal Man. This is the exclamation point on a very thorough character assassination. And possibly even worse when you know what James's semblance is, but that is a can of tism that I'm saving for the end. We then get a flashback of how they came up with this outstanding 5D Uno reverse climbing silver move. Winter, to the shock of no one, is a disgusting traitor that conspired with a group of intellectual midgets. Also, why didn't Crow and Robin attack Marrow and Winter? Okay, I can get Crow, but Robin would try and kill at least one of them. Wouldn't be the first time she tried killing someone who did nothing wrong, but we've already been over that. And now we get to know how the staff works. Pay very close attention to the explanation. It'll make things more confusing later on.
Spirit in the staff. He can build you anything, but only if you can explain to him how. Like any craftsman, he'll need blueprints. Some sort of reference.
Also, Ruby can do this. Again, you'll be confused later. You know, I'm just imagining that in better hands, the scene where they go into the vault would be where the plot guillotine drops. The James the others fought was a robot with some kind of hard light projection, and the real James was in the vault this entire time, showing his superior experience and strategic knowledge. He was never going to destroy Mantle. It was all one giant bluff to get them here, because he knew he couldn't get them here otherwise, and that he knew they wouldn't hold up their end. He would then eviscerate each and every single one of them, going into great depth about his actions and recontextualizing them. Granted, it would require a rewrite of both Volume 7 and 8, but the entire series should really just be put out of its misery. Point is, this could have been a great opportunity to, dare I say it, subvert expectations. Instead, we get what is quite possibly the worst writing in the entire show. Shouldn't you guys have brought Jean to keep Penny from unaliving herself? Seems pretty important to me. We're then introduced to Chadman, the only recent addition to the show that hasn't made me want to commit war crimes. He's genuinely entertaining. But now we get to the plan to save Penny. A plan so galaxy-brained that it puts Eisen's plan to shame. They want Chadman to break down Penny's existing parts and rebuild her but leave her soul alone. Now, a rational person would assume that would kill someone. You would understand why someone might think that. However, Penny's soul just forms a flesh and blood body.
You can't do this! Shut up! Stop it! How does hitting off the fucking fuck does the fucking fuck work?
You can't destroy.
I'm pretty sure that means he can't directly destroy something, because he can make a room that's impossible to escape from for the purpose of burning someone to death. But even if we assume Penny wouldn't die, why in the fuck does her soul form a new flesh and blood body? Where in the fuck was that in the plan? What the hell made you all think this would happen?
A soul without a complete body, what would be left?
I don't know. I guess you just have to get creative.
So you weren't expecting it, meaning you all were literally playing with someone's life with no idea or even cared about the potential consequences. What terrible friends you all are.
We don't have any other options. We believe in her.
Weiss, Penny isn't the one making a new body. Do you believe that through sheer will that her soul will magic a body out of nothing? Are you an idiot? Stupid question, of course you are. Oh, I'm not done with this bag of vomit-covered hagfish meat. Since Pietro's soul is Penny's, or at least a portion of it, wouldn't that portion of her soul go to Pietro or something? It's his, after all. Then there's the question of why does Penny retain all her memories? Hello, editing room me here. So I was wrong about the whole, souls not having memories thing, because they do. There's the whole Ozpin thing, and then there's the, Ozma, like, remembering shit as he's a soul talking to the god of light in the afterlife. So, yeah, souls have memories. I was wrong on that. However, that just kind of raises more issues with Penny, because, so, like, wouldn't she just have the old man's memories? Because her soul is an old man's soul, and how does the old man's soul become her own, unique soul? How exactly does that work? Really just kind of makes you think that Penny was a mistake conceptually. Also, wasn't the whole becoming a real girl thing done last season when Penny became a maiden? The idea being it proves she's a real girl. Ignoring the borked mechanics, of course, it was more symbolic and honestly, at least conceptually, far more impactful from a thematic standpoint. Now she's literally being turned into a real girl, which opens up a galaxy-sized can of worms in how souls work in this universe. Also, Penny hugging everyone is apparently one of Carrie's favorite scenes. I'm very happy for you. If only you didn't break the knees of logic and explained it horrendously. Maybe I'd agree. What I'm getting at is all of this is garbage. But if you thought that outstanding fourth-dimensional planning was great, this next-level idea will blow your fucking mind.
Can you make a bunch of doorways in Atlas that open at a single spot in Vacuo?
I'm sorry. Fucking what? Why would you want to put 2 cities worth of people in Vacuo? You know, the place known for its lack of resources, harsh conditions, and the fact there's really only one place of order? That sounds like an awful idea, Yang. I know the plot needs us to go there next, but wouldn't Vale or Mistral be better? You can just take an airship to Vacuo from there. This seems immensely irresponsible and stupid.
I'll just need coordinates and specs for each door, an explanation for bending space and time to account for the much greater traffic on one side, and a single point of exit on the other.
Excellent point, Chadman, but little did you know, you're not dealing with the average idiot anymore.
So, we need to funnel everybody through a central location first.
But why does it need to have a central location? Why not just have it be instantaneous? Oh, right, plot. I'm sorry. I was thinking again. Also, apparently you don't need to explain how to warp the fabric of reality to open a portal in the fabric of reality. What did Oz say again?
Like any craftsman, he'll need blueprints. Some sort of reference.
Well, I guess telling him to make a place like the vault is good enough. You didn't meet his criteria, but fuck it. Chadman then says this.
Oh, and one last point of clarification about this central location of yours. Do not fall.
None of them ask why. You would think that would be a critical, need-to-know bit of information to tell the 2 cities worth of people you're dumping into a near-lawless wasteland, but I think we firmly established these 4 having the collective intelligence of a melted ice cream sandwich. And Cinder is coming along too. They don't take this possibility into consideration, by the way, despite knowing Cinder is an Atlas. Morons. Also, we see how the portals work a bit. Now, I don't know if Jean was being a complete autist when going through, but that looks terrifying and not ideal for massive groups of people.
Shade is armed to the teeth with huntsmen and huntresses.
Couldn't you say that about anywhere? I get that it's not ideal regardless where they end up, but a desert wasteland with little natural resources is at the bottom of the list when it comes to places they should be. Jean and his team go to evacuate some civilians, and a few of the moronics go past to the exit portal and find there's a sandstorm. Man, it's almost like this was a terrible idea. Speaking of bad ideas, Cinder attacks, and look at all these people fall into the void. Oh my goodness. It's like this central hub was a terrible idea. It's almost like not taking into account Cinder, who you know is an Atlas, was a terrible idea. But hey, Ruby can just use her Silver Eyes while the dumbass monologues. Nah, she just rushes her. Even though the last time she used her Silver Eyes, she didn't need to concentrate. And you'd think that Cinder, knowing that Ruby can one-shot her, wouldn't monologue in the first place. But she is equally stupid. It's really hard to care about characters that are completely brain-dead. Then we cut in the middle of the fight to a flashback showing how Cinder found out about the Moronics' plan by using Jinn. And this further supports you don't need to be specific when asking questions. So this line,
"How do I destroy Salem?"
You can't.
Has now been retconned, since she could have just answered with summoning the gods when humanity is united or something. Then she kills all these innocent people. Man, if only Atlas could have been out of her reach. Alas, I doubt we'll ever know if it could have been done. Anyways, we see what was going on with Crow, Robin, and the Job Squad. Robin says Asgard isn't a place, it's a people. Then a robot that's going to explode rushes them, and instead of using his semblance on it, Marrow jumps in front of it like a retard. You'd think I'd be numb to stupidity at this point. Harriet jumps into the ship carrying the bomb as Atlas tilts, and we cut to James waking up. James's cell opens up, because I guess Arthur let him out since he has control over the base or something. Also, they left James's weapons just lying around next to his cell, because reasons. Then James kills Jacques because he's evil now. You will hate the Metal Man. Metal Man bad. Back with the Moronics, and Ruby still doesn't even try to use her Silver Eyes, even though Cinder is fucking jabbering on. Neo sneak attacks Ruby and Yang jumps in front of Ruby to save her. This somehow knocks her out as well as her aura. I didn't know Yang became so fragile. Also, Yang saw Neo coming towards Ruby, so why didn't she shoot her? Well, then we couldn't have this emotional moment, of course. Why Ruby doesn't try to save her, I don't know. She's reacted to similar things before. Sacrificing consistency for emotional set pieces is what hack writers do. I mean, Blake has enough time to almost save Yang, so why can't Ruby? Blake is also reacting far more to Yang's potential death than Ruby. Sure, she's fighting Neo, but not one single showing of anger at Neo? You're fucking useless, Ruby. Blake also yells Yang's name so hard that Penny can hear it over the constant screaming of the terrified civilians. And she brings the staff with her. Because reasons. Damn it, Penny, you're one of the few characters that I don't despise. Why didn't you throw the staff through the portal, you koala brain? You know you need to keep the McMuffins away from the villains. This isn't a hard thing to think about. Harriet is going to arm the bomb to blow up Mantle. Now, why would she do this? Well, you'd think it's more of the soldiers are bad and dumb bullshit. But somehow, it's even dumber.
Clover was... he was...
important to you.
It's very heavily implied that she loves Clover, and that, for some reason, is the motivation as to why she's going to destroy a city. I can't be the only one who interprets this scene this way, can I? She talks about principles, then mentions how Clover would have done it, then breaks down when thinking about it. Maybe it's just me. Hell, I'm not even going to say that was the intention or that's what's objectively going on, but that's just how my brain read it. So I'm going with it because the thought of Harriet being so thirsty she's willing to commit war crimes makes me laugh. Anyways, Robin, being the galaxy brain individual she is, decides to, and I'm not kidding, ram the fucking ship with the bomb in it like an absolute mongoloid. Why on Azathoth's flat Earth are you ramming your ship into one that has a city-destroying bomb on it? What if it goes off, you ham sandwich? You have no idea what could happen. Out of all the characters that deserve to die, you're near the very top, and I hope it happens slowly. Arthur takes control of the ships and redirects them towards Atlas, while James confronts Winter. And despite all the effort the show has done to make James the bad guy, to make him irredeemable, to get their genocide general, he's the only one who feels any regret fighting someone he cared about. someone who stuck with him through very tough times and choices. Yet these lying degenerates don't even see the grief they caused this man. Not even Winter feels any kind of regret or sadness or pity for someone whom she worked so closely with. Are you bots finally starting to understand why a massive portion of the fandom still sides with James? However, James just charged someone while his BFG is ready to fire instead of just shooting them, so there's that.
I'm spent.
How's your plan going, guys? Looks like you're getting what you fucking deserve.
Something's wrong.
It's a one-way ticket to Vacuo. One-way ticket to Vacuo.
Okay, I have to give credit where I can or else I'm not being fair. That's a bit clever and makes sense since Chadman needs specific instructions. Fair enough. You get a fraction of a point. The last episode begins with a content warning. Now, there have been others this season, but that was due to flashing lights that may trigger an epileptic response. As an epileptic myself, I can appreciate it, especially since it's something you can't really control. However, this one warning us of dark themes of death is a complete bitch move. Anyone who has watched this show for any period of time would know that people have been killed multiple times in very brutal and, I guess, graphic ways that don't involve a bunch of blood. And how little confidence do you have to have in your audience that you have to warn them about the fictional characters that are going to die in case it might distress them? It's not even that graphic or dark. Power Rangers has killed literal children on screen and heavily implied multiple instances of global genocide. Basically, RT has less testicular fortitude than a kid's show, which isn't surprising. We see Salem regenerating before cutting to James and Winter fighting.
I have sacrificed everything!
No! You have sacrificed everyone else!
Okay, Winter. What have you sacrificed exactly? Your job? Sure. What else? James, meanwhile, sacrifices reputation, public perception, his body, and his sanity, all for the sake of saving the world. He closed the borders to try and prevent Salem's forces from entering because he was working with very little at the time. Mantle was going to suffer a hit, but it was short-term suffering for long-term gain.
I have only done what's best for Remnant, and no one is grateful!
I'll get into my final thoughts about how much James was botched, but I completely agree. Back with the Moronics, fighting Cinder and... Do you not have peripheral vision, you fucking bagel? She hit you on the good eye side, too. Okay, Weiss, Cinder isn't in front of the portal anymore, so go through it, and... useless as always.
Why can't you just let me do my job? Because you're our friend!
Oh my god, she said they're friends! It's full circle now! Even though that's not how soldiers work. Arthur activates the bomb anyways. Good. Fuck all these idiots. Ruby continues to fight Neo. What the hell kind of bullshit was that? Throwing your comically impractical weapon, then super speeding over to catch it after it predictably fails to hit anything? The fuck? Weiss then comes in and hits Neo with the staff. Cinder then no-diffs Penny and Blake to go after Weiss and Ruby. Penny, why don't you shoot your ice powers while Cinder is distracted? At least try. This fight is terrible. Back with the bomb crew, and Vine decides to sacrifice himself by containing the bomb with his semblance. What an emotional moment, which I will now ruin. Why didn't Vine just wrap his aura arm things around the bomb itself? He can contain it while covering the whole ship, so why not just contain the bomb on the ship? Less surface area to cover, meaning he could contain it far better and reduce the radius by a significant portion. And he's pretty confident he can contain the explosion. So, given what I've already laid out, it's in character for him to only contain the bomb and not the whole ship. So his death is really dumb.
You should have never threatened me.
What? Cinder betrayed you? No. You don't say, Neo. Not like you had any reason to trust her as far as you did, but my themes needed it, I guess. Oh, now you think of using your one-shot Grim powers when it doesn't matter, despite having the perfect opportunity to.
Get what you fucking deserve!
Ruby and Blake are yeeted into the void, leaving Penny and Weiss to face Cinder. Who has the McMuffin, by the way? Should have thrown it through the portal when you had the chance, Penny. I guess human brains are worse than robot brains in this franchise. Jean comes in to save them. Man, if only his character development wasn't rushed and shoved into the background the majority of the time, because him facing Cinder could have been great. Now it's just lame. Speaking of lame, Penny gets clawed and Jean kills her. Well, that was a waste of fucking time. I'll get into Penny during the conclusion, but it's hilarious knowing Kruby kneecapped the mechanics of not just how the Maiden powers work, but also raised so many questions of how souls work, just to kill her. Again. The funniest thing, though, is that Jean could be healing Penny this whole time, and considering he's had training from an experienced professional like Vine, he should be much better at it than when he healed Weiss back in Volume 5. Even if she's not fully healed, it should be enough for her to at least get through the portal, especially with Jean fighting Cinder with Weiss, which Cinder isn't just doing her flame AoE so Penny and Jean can talk because reasons. Winter gets the powers, which makes sense. What doesn't is that James just doesn't shoot Winter with his gun. He instead puts it back in his stupid dollar store BFG, so how very convenient that Winter doesn't just get shot before she gets the Maiden powers. And you want to know the ultimate cherry on this massive shit sundae? This is what Penny asked Ruby to do earlier and would have actually improved the show slightly, since we wouldn't have Penny's soul farting out a human body from nothing and would give Ruby some character depth. Hypothetically speaking, of course. I don't think any of these writers can make this plank of wood interesting anymore, but you see my point. Unbelievable. So Winter saves the day, and she and Cinder have a shitty flying brick fight. Raven vs. Cinder wasn't amazing or anything, but it was far better than this shit. Winter, why did you stop and look at Jean? Why didn't you try and shoot the fireball out of the air? Why are you really stupid? It's like if you didn't stop like a toad, you might have saved them, you fucking moron. How is Salem's scream shaking the portals? Assuming that is Salem. If not, then I guess foreshadowing for something? Maybe? I really don't care. Also, Winter just flies backwards despite the fact we've seen the Maidens come to a dead stop while flying in this episode. So Winter didn't even try and save Jean. And so tens of thousands of people are stranded in a desert with no adequate resources and surrounded by monsters who are attracted by negative emotions with only a few kids and hunters to protect them. And even if you want to argue a maiden is enough to protect them, you can't honestly say that hundreds at least wouldn't die or haven't already died before Winter arrived. All thanks to the brain-dead heroics of our team of complete degenerate morons. And of course, James has to die like a bitch. Not on his feet like a man, taking shots at the woman he gave up so much to fight. Defiant to the end. Instead, he dies on his stomach like a pathetic coward, his assassination complete, the destruction of the last hint of good the story had to offer. Fuck you. And to everyone defending this, please find some goddamn standards for your storytelling and demand better than this bullshit. But you know what? This is what all of the heroes fucking deserve. RWBY Volume 8 is just awful. It's some of the worst storytelling I've seen in a long time, with the most insulting character assassination since Black Widow. And what besides Penny and James's characters is there really left to conclude on? The lore and plot have been completely fucked sideways for years at this point, and I've already explained in great detail how the Moronics are absolute hypocrites. Sure, the villains are slightly better, but that's just because some of them are just very basic and hard to fuck up. And one of them is dead now, leaving only Tyrion and Mercury as villains that, well, aren't shit. However, you all want me to destroy the big one. You hacks fucked up so hard with James, it's beyond embarrassing. From the beginning, he was always an empathetic character that cared about human life. He was making strides to replace human lives on the front line. He didn't force the students to fight when Beacon was falling. Shutting down the borders, the dust embargo, the heavy military presence in Mantle, having Penny be the city's protector, all of it was to ensure the safety of his kingdom, even if the citizens didn't know it. Upon seeing Crow, he immediately hugs him, happy to see him alive. He trusts the Moronics with everything. This is who James Ironwood is at his core. Someone who values the safety and lives of the citizens. Not just in his kingdom, but the entire world. So when he has to make a choice, he chooses the world, even if it tears his soul apart. He is not a bad cartoon villain who evil talks when he plans to blow up a city. He does not kill people for no reason. He doesn't work with his enemy so casually, if at all. But more importantly, he doesn't lie there, looking at his greatest enemy and not take a shot, like some fucking sad dog. Could it have all been avoided if the Moronics were honest with him a lot sooner? Most likely, yes. They told him at literally the worst possible time, and he worked with them. If he knew sooner, he'd have a better plan laid out, have a team work on a way of possibly containing Salem and possibly trying to get Robin to work with him sooner. Because despite what people may want you to think, he wasn't unreasonable or irrational. Just a man doing what he can with the information he has. He compromises with Nora, even though initiating martial law would have probably been the best option looking back. What does his trust and compromise get him? Stretched resources with the largest Grim horde on his doorstep. All because he trusted these disgusting individuals, whose amazing plan was to dump thousands of people into a wasteland, and he's punished for rightfully issuing for their arrest. This wasn't a tragic fall. The incident that caused him to snap was the lies perpetuated by the heroes, and yet he's treated and forced into becoming a villain with no intentional consequences for these paragons of hypocrisy. But wait, it gets even worse, because James's semblance is to blame. You may be asking the reasonable question of, what semblance? Well, clear viewer, let me tell you about Metal. It allows James to hyper-focus on a task and give him the willpower and resolve to make decisions, no matter how irrational they are. Because his semblance is a mental illness, and never once stated in the show. This is all post and coming from a fucking Zoom call.
Passive semblance that runs in the background. I believe we called it Metal. And so the whole thing is just this kind of like iron resolve / will.
And if this was really the case, then someone, like Winter, would have mentioned it, right? That if you break his aura, you'll snap him out of it and you'll be able to talk to him, right? Of fucking course not, because Metal is never once hinted at or mentioned at all. And it makes the Moronics even worse because they're essentially demonizing and beating up a mentally ill person. Not only that, it makes James far less morally culpable for his actions since he can't control it when it's on, effectively robbing him a good portion of his agency and making the Moronics even worse morally. That's why so many people don't consider it canon. Rightfully so. While Penny wasn't assassinated, she was incredibly disrespected. Her entire role this season was to push the shitty plot train forward. James can't open the vault without Penny, so he works with Arthur. Arthur implants a virus into her, so they have to trick James so they can open the vault and fuck over how souls work, and to build the retarded portals. And while she does make a few of her own choices, Ruby ironically makes some choices for her. Penny wants to sacrifice herself the first time so Ruby can get the maiden powers at least and keep them safe? Nah, just keep healing her and bank on a plan that you have no fucking idea will work and could kill her anyways because you're all terrible friends. She deserved better than being plot fuel. With all that said, it's finally over. I'm done with Ruby until Volume 9, and no, I'm not going to be looking at Ice Queendom. Unless maybe it gets a dub. I'm not sure though. If you enjoy my pain and suffering, then please hit that subscribe button. And if you want more soul-destroying misery put upon me, then donate to me on Patreon. Stay tuned for more stuff, and I'll see you next time, my friends.